G'day everyone, welcome back to another episode of Either Side of Nhill. I'm Ben, one half of this dynamic duo. I'm here in Adelaide on the lands of the Kaurna Nation, and today's episode's all about indigenous and native foods, and it's incredible to think that Kaurna people have survived on these foods for about 70,000 years, which is just amazing to think about before we showed up. How lucky am I to be here in beautiful Adelaide? I'm joined by my fabulous... I can't even do an intro. I'm joined here by my fabulous cousin, Kristy, who's on the other side of Nhill in Melbourne. G'day, Kristy. How you going?
Hi, Ben. I'm really well, thanks. It's good to see you. And yes, it is June. We are tuned together in June. It's great to see you again on this chilly Saturday morning. It's June the 4th already, and what an awesome episode we've got lined up today. It's going to be an absolute cracker. Jam-packed.
Get ready.
It's going to go for about 4 hours, so strap in, everyone.
Joe Rogan, eat your heart out.
So, as I said, we've got a great episode lined up today. But before we jump into some of these amazing chats that we've got lined up, Ben, we have got a brand new Facebook public group, Either Side of Nhill. It's growing. We've got so much support and love happening out there. And I did set up the Facebook page, stuffed it up. I've got no idea. Created a Facebook group. Got people, invites from left, right, and centre. Don't know what I'm doing, but anyway, it's all up there, and we're going to start posting more stuff onto the Facebook. So join in if you like. It's a public group, so keep it nice.
If you're messy,
Ben,
exactly.
I'm telling you, keep it nice.
I got it. Yeah, no, you're giving me the eye. I get it. Yeah. The if you're having trouble setting up Facebook, Kristy, you've got no hope with TikTok. I mean, you're like a generation behind there.
Can't cope. I just pull my hair out. Anyway, it's up and it's working. So it is a public group. So thanks, guys, for everyone that's following us.
Thank you. Yeah. Now, episode 5 was a 2-parter, and we broke all our world podcasting records when we spoke to Mayor Melanie Albrecht. She's the mayor of the Hindmarsh Shire. That was a really, really popular episode, and we loved chatting to Melanie and appreciated her taking the time. And yeah, I did lose the plot probably a little bit in part 2 of episode 5.
Funny.
But, oh my God,
totally lost the plot. Couldn't stop laughing. It was really hilarious. Yeah, it was a really fun episode. That one was awesome. Loved it.
She was absolutely great, and she's agreed to be part of the show, so we can call her a friend of the show. Now, speaking of...
Unofficially, in brackets, she hasn't really signed the contract yet.
Okay. No, she has to now.
She's got no choice.
Now, we did run a poll on Instagram and Facebook. We did our best. It's the first time we've run a poll, but look, we did run a poll, and we asked you what you wanted to hear more of, and you're telling us you want to hear about interesting characters and from interesting characters in the Nhill community, in the area. So stay tuned. We're doing some hard work to bring that to you.
We have got a good list of interesting characters too, so thanks to the guys for submitting those people. So if you get tapped on the shoulder, you know you're an interesting character.
That's it. And if you don't, you're boring. No, you're not really. No.
Ben.
That's not true. That's not true. Kristy, today is June the 4th. Why don't you tell us about what is happening in Nhill? Because it is a huge day in Nhill today.
It's an absolutely massive day in Nhill today. So there's a big football match happening in the Nhill and District Sporting Club. They have got Daisy Thomas coming up to play on in the seniors match later on the Savo, Davis Park. It's going to look absolutely beautiful, and they've posted some photos onto Facebook, and we'll reshare them. But it's going to be absolutely fantastic. There's going to be netball, junior footy happening. There's going to be barbecues. There's all sorts of fun stuff. The Fox footy team are going to be there, and they're playing the Southern Mallee Giants. So enjoy it. It's going to be awesome. I think Ben Dixon's also hosting a sports person's night as well. So that's going to be super fun. Yeah, can't be there, but we're totally there in spirit. And
yes, sorry.
No, that's okay, Ben.
On behalf of the town of Nhill, you accept my apology. Thank you.
Yeah, I do. But it is going to be a really good night. But also coming up for next month, they've got the reverse raffle. So we've already bought our ticket supporting the club, and there's a whole bunch of awesome prizes. And first prize is worth $2,500.
Wow.
Yeah, I think it's a silo.
A whole silo.
No, I'm only joking.
Exactly.
I'm only joking, Ben. But no, there's some really awesome prizes. So we've already got ours, and we're in. You got to be in it to win it.
That's it, absolutely. Now, I don't know how many times I've already said awesome, probably
To edit
30.
that out, yeah. No,
Yeah.
nothing's as awesome as that raffle ticket going to win.
No, but that is actually, you've got to use the word when it's appropriate, and that is appropriate, so that's okay.
True. So in today's episode, we're chatting about a bunch of things, but mainly Indigenous foods, and so we've got lots to chat about. So let's kick it off, Ben. Let's go.
Yeah, let's go.
Righto, Ben. Now it's time for everyone's favourite segment, the brand new Fast Five. And today we're fast fiving with Nhill farmer Matthew Koop, who's a native food grower and is passionate about growing Indigenous foods, and with more than 20 years experience in harvesting and marketing Quondongs and other amazing fruits. So let's rip with the Fast Five. Hey Koopy, how are you? Are you ready?
Hey, Kristy, how are you?
Good.
Nice to talk to you again. For your viewers' interest, I'd like to point out that Kristy and I used to work together about 20 years ago, when she was office manager of a research firm that I was working for. So she was one of the first people to have to listen to me wither on about native foods. So it's really nice to have her actually asking me to tell us some more about it now.
Fantastic. Well, Koopy, we're going to ask, can you tell us what type of food you are growing in Nhill, please?
Sure. I grow local native, 3 different kinds of local native foods: Quondongs, Muntries, which are, anyway, we'll talk about them a bit more, Muntries and Wattleseed.
Wow.
Oh, okay. Question number 2, Koopy. So why did you decide to grow these specific foods items?
Well, it's a bit of a long story. Don't know how long you've got, but this can go on for a long time, as my family know, they're constantly, anyway, trying to change the subject. So anyway, I got into this in late 90s, after I'd been living overseas for a while and came back to Australia, and wanted to have a little hobby farm up in the bush to have a sort of a connection to country. So I back then, it was like the first time you could start downloading reports from government departments. So I downloaded a whole lot of reports on all sorts of potential high value irrigated crops that wouldn't use a lot of land, and eventually came upon research done by the Primary Industries Department of South Australia, PIRSA. And they were reporting work done by the CSIRO in the 80s to do wild selections and trials of Quondongs in Golgol and Port Augusta. And I learnt that there was a native food little association, and that prices were quite high. And then I learnt from my grandmother that they were local, and that she used to pick them as a little girl when she lived in Catchell, north of Dimboola, and on her way to school she would pick them. And later on, by the way, there's a great quote I always like to make from Jack Lockett. Jack Lockett was a Mallee farmer and World War I digger. He died at the age of 110 in 2001. So he was like the generation before my grandmother, almost.
Wow.
20 years older than her. And he always, when he was asked the secret of his old age, he would always give the same answer, which was Quondong jam and underground mutton.
Jam. Oh, that's so good.
Yeah, so it was kind of like I got into it because it was a local food, and why aren't we using these foods? And it was a connection to my culture, basically.
Yeah, wow.
And I thought they should be easy to grow in Nhill.
Because they're
native to the area. They're wild Quondongs within a few kilometres of where I set it up. North of, just west of Nine Well, for those who know the area. And yeah, so it's gone from there, and basically that's taken me into the other native foods, and it has been a hobby up until 2020, when I've sort of moved back to Nhill, and doing it now takes up most of my time.
Wow. Okay. So for those of us that may not know much about these foods, can you give us some examples of how you eat them, who's buying them, what sort of things they can be used in?
Well, it's really very upmarket, modern Australian cuisine restaurants that have given these foods credibility. They're often used in gourmet restaurants. Quondongs, just to be more specific, Quondongs can be either tart or tangy. They're often used in jam, Berenberg in Adelaide have had jam for decades. Or they're using chutneys. I make a great chutney, but you can also do them I was selling them in ice creams in Melbourne in the early noughties. Often as a garnish over meat. It's very versatile. It can be used in all sorts of things. Quondongs. Muntries are a small little creeper that grows in all throughout the little desert, surround the little desert lodge everywhere, and they're like a little apple. They're a miniature apple. Kunzia pomifera, pom being Latin for apple. So you can use them anywhere you'd use apple or pear. You can augment or replace with Muntries. Wattleseed is like a oil seed, a small seed. These days it's used mostly it's roasted and ground and used as a spice, a flavouring in all sorts of things like baked goods or as a coffee substitute. But you can also just use it as a grain. I made a wonderful tabbouleh salad. You can use Wattleseed, roast it for a short amount of time and then simmer it, and it'll puff up like rice or quinoa does, and you can use it in all sorts of places. And it's very high in protein, very high in carbohydrates, very, very healthy.
Hey, Koopy, how do you see sustainable farming methods and farming for the future on your land?
Well, what I'm doing is inherently sustainable, which is partly why I got into it, because it uses local native plants that are perennials, and the fundamental challenge with any sort of regenerative farming is building up your soil microbes, and that's really what you do when you have perennial plantings or you have perennial pastures. So it's adding additives, adding more carbon to the soil, using quite a bit of duck litter or straw, which are both straw is readily available. Duck litter has become very popular this year, so it's hard to get now. Duck litter from all the duck farms around. So yes, it's basically using a lot of permanent plantings, and of course wattles are legumes. They add a lot of nitrogen to the soil. They thrive on very poor soils, which is what my block is, my new block. It's a very sandy, poor soil country, which is not suitable for cropping most of it, my block. So,
hey, Koopy, it's so good to talk to you and to hear about your important, farming initiatives and for the land, and how you're making it better for future generations as well. It's really unreal to hear about all the awesome things that you're growing, and that was actually our Fast Five. They were the fast questions. We've actually got one final bonus question for you, Koopy. Are you ready?
Yes.
Are you sure? All right, Koopy. Finally, give us your fish and chip order. We ask all our VIPs, and you're one of them. So come on.
Fish and chips. I rarely ever order fish and chips. I think my fish. So I'll give you my ideal fish and chip order.
Do it.
Would be yabbies fried in a Wattleseed batter. Okay.
Love it.
I don't think I'm getting that at Redwood Park Chicken Shop, but I can try.
Oh, Koopy, that was absolutely brilliant. You totally nailed it. Thanks so much for being part of Fast Five.
Right.
Thanks, Koopy.
Good on, guys. See ya.
Thanks, Koopy. That was so interesting. And look, what we've done is we'll put the full interview up on our Linktree page. So if you want to listen to that full interview, because it's really, really interesting, all the stuff that Koopy's doing, and he's really interested in this stuff. So thanks so much for your time. He is one of our Nhill people on the ground, so he does feed us intel, and so we really appreciate it. But that was great stuff.
On the ground. It is really good. Yep, love that one with Koopy. Thanks, mate. Hey, Ben, can you hear that knocking sound? I'm pretty sure there's someone knocking at the pod door. In fact, there is. And I have a surprise special VIP guest for us today. You're not going to believe this, Ben. We have got my kitchen rule star and my old buddy from high school, Jodie-Anne Barlow, joining us today. Well, hello there, Jodie, and how are you?
Oh, my goodness, Kristy. I'm so good. Hey, Ben, nice to meet you.
Hey, how you going? So nice to meet you too.
Can you believe that Kristy and I went to school together?
No, I can just imagine Kristy at school. Well, I did know Kristy when she was at school, and I can imagine that she was probably lots of fun and maybe a bit of trouble. I don't know.
Trouble. I won't go into the trouble parts, but have always said that Kristy's one of the funniest people that you'll ever meet, just permanently laughing. So, and your podcast reflects that just beautifully.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Good old days at Chelt High and getting up to no good. So, I haven't really. We had a great conversation earlier in the week talking about Chelt High and all the fun times that we got up to. So, yeah, shout out to all those people listening. No, you are.
They would be listening, of course.
Miss Vermatukas, who was my maths teacher.
Oh my goodness me. I didn't have her. I had Tanya Cantanis, though. She's a legend, still is. Love that woman.
Yeah.
And if there's anyone listening, they'll be going, oh, Cantanis.
So first up, why don't you introduce yourself and discuss some of your extraordinary skills to our amazing listeners?
Well, thank you. Extraordinary skills. I don't really feel like I have extraordinary skills. What I'm doing now in my life is cooking, and for the greater good, I suppose. We've got a business called Champagne Food on a Beer Budget, and the concept of that, which we aired on My Kitchen Rules, is literally so that the regular person can cook a great dish, champagne style, for the price of a beer. You know what I mean? So it's going into the supermarkets, buying the markdowns, not necessarily with a shopping list and saying, oh, well, I'll have a lamb roast and I'll have meatballs this week or whatever. Go through the veggie section, go through the meat section, buy whatever's marked down and then adapt. And we do, lots and lots of different recipes. They're on our website, on our socials that you can look up if you're interested. Yeah, that's just sort of, I've always loved cooking, was cooking from a very young age, and thought, how can I share this with people that are like-minded? So naturally, the best way to do that was to get my backside onto a TV show, and it bloody worked, much to the horror of Mick. And my mum, I applied first with my mum, and she was like, yeah, I'll go on with you, thinking it'll never happen. And within about 26 hours, we had a phone call to say we're flying down from Melbourne to interview you, flying down from Sydney to interview you. So, yeah, a bit of a whirlwind, the old My Kitchen Rules.
But that, of course, wasn't your first TV gig. I saw you on Ready Steady Cook. I've been doing my research, and I saw you on Ready Steady Cook. So that was quite a while ago, and you were doing some pork and you had some gigantic citrus thing, and you couldn't remember the name of it, which I thought was hilarious.
The name of that now. My goodness, I got
that was
stuck
fantastic.
on the show. Adam Swanson, yeah. So, and actually, and that I've managed to get that somewhere on social media. I can't remember where. I actually said to Peter Everett, I want to have my own cooking show, and called Champagne Food on a Beer Budget, and that was in 2009, I think. So it was a long time dream, yeah. And FYI, we have actually filmed a pilot episode of Champagne Food on a Beer Budget, which you can see our little sizzle reel on our socials as well. Yes. So it's which just a matter of getting it picked up now post-COVID.
Well, hopefully with the force of Either Side of Nhill behind you, we can make that happen. So
thank you.
If anyone from Chelt High is a TV producer.
Chelt High. This podcast's becoming quite large, you guys, isn't it?
It is, yes. It's extremely large, and we have got quite the following now. So yeah, we need to make sure that we do our research and make sure everything we say is factual, because sometimes
we have to learn how many pubs there are in Nhill, because I said there were 3 and there's only 2. But back to you.
Back to you. Yeah.
Can you tell us a bit more about Champagne Food on a Beer Budget? I love the name, and I love the idea and the fact that you actually buy food that is on special and then adapt, rather than thinking, here's my list and I have to go and get it, because we all know food's really expensive. Yeah. So can you tell us a little bit more about what appealed to you about that, and how Champagne Food on a Beer Budget has grown over the years?
Sure. When Mick and I moved up to Turrumbry, we were Melbourneites initially. So we started a business and had a mortgage, and I said to Mick, I'm not buying it. I don't want a mortgage more than $100,000. And he was like, you're off your 3KZ. And we got a mortgage that wasn't that much bigger than that, but I wanted to pay it off really quick because I don't like being in debt. So I just did everything possible to keep money in the bank, I suppose, or just keep paying off the debt. So if something was markdowns, it's not necessarily specials, it's the markdowns that I'm I'm interested in. If you can pick up a piece of meat that's was $18 and it's now $6, then I'll just adapt something. You can always come up with something. We make tacos from sausages that are marked down. Just take the skins off them, and rather than buying the packet mix and then the mince meat that might be $8, if you can get a tray of sausages that's been marked down to $3.50, well, you've just paid $3.50 for the mince, which is super cheap, and it's already flavoured. So we also do souvlakis that way. I can't think of sort of literally everything that I buy is marked down. The veggies, if you're going to be able to use them straight away, and freeze stuff. People don't realise, it's close to being out of date. Can I freeze it? Of course you can. Stick it all in the freezer. Cheese you can freeze. Milk you can freeze. Cheese you don't want to then pull it out and put it on a platter necessarily, but you can grate it and put it through a lasagna or a white sauce or mac and cheese. You can have the most extravagant mac and cheese for super, super cheap that you've paid, $60 a kilo cheese, and they don't want to throw it out. So, I picked up a block of triple brie the other day that was marked down from $13 to $2.38 or something like that. Big piece of triple brie. So,
God,
yeah,
yum.
that was where it started, just from not wanting to be in debt.
Quick question of can you freeze Parmesan cheese?
Yep.
Okay, cool.
Why?
That's a burning question that Kristy's had.
Sorry, continue on, Ben. Yeah.
Do you buy the block one or the graded one, or both?
I bought the already graded one, and then I only need a little bit.
All
I
my
had this
graded
big,
cheese.
massive bag.
I keep all my grated cheese in the freezer, all of it. Never have it in the fridge.
All right, cool. It's going in the freezer.
Great tip.
I'll be back in a sec, guys.
Kristy's off to the freezer.
I love it. So while she's gone, Ben, no.
Yeah, that's it. Now, Jodie, in this episode, we're chatting about local produce and I nearly said produce.
Oh my God,
produce
I know. I was going to pick
and
you up
indigenous.
on that. Produce, so fancy. Produce.
Sorry. Well, I am from Adelaide, so
Stop it.
Of course, it's that.
and indigenous foods and native foods. Are you cooking with indigenous foods? And if you are, what sort of cooking do you do with it? And what's the last thing that you cooked using indigenous foods, if you can remember?
Do cook with indigenous foods, and we've actually got some friends. So we're in Turumbury, and the next town over is called Lockington, and some friends of ours, Michelle and Adrian Johns, they've got just a new startup business actually called Talara Australian Native Botanicals, and they're growing things like pepperberry and saltbush and things like that. So before those guys doing that, I've always been interested in the indigenous herbs and spices particularly. I'm just a sucker for saltbush lamb because I love lamb. Pepperberry I actually cooked with on MKR. We got a pretty good wrap, and I'll send you guys a recipe that you can provide to your listeners if they're interested in cooking that. Because the other thing about champagne food on a beer budget is it's for the normal person, and the recipes that I create are simple. And this pepperberry sauce is actually using plum jam. So, buy a jar of plum jam, add some I've put shallots in the recipe, but you can just dice up some brown onion. Pepperberry is I love pepperberry, but it's really hard to describe. It's not hot. It's kind of peppery, but it's also got citrusy notes, and it goes really well in sweet things. So this sauce that I've provided, the pepperberry sauce with the plums and chicken stock, just boil it up on the stove, comes up super luscious, looks beautiful, and then pour it on. You could pour it on pork, but I did it with, on the show on MKR, lamb cutlets. And they're a really nice mix with lamb. So, but if you make enough of it, I always buy just there we go, a no-name brand of plum jam. Don't have to go fancy on the plum jam, and I make the whole jar and then freeze it.
Oh wow! Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
chuck it in the freezer.
Oh, you must have a gigantic freezer.
Nick, you can
what was that about, Jam?
Parmesan cheese.
We got one of those tucker box freezers. Remember those old ones that you lifted the big lid up and then you look in what's in the freezer?
Yep.
So have
Absolutely.
you got
Great place to hide a
animals out on
body.
your farm there? Oh, no.
I do have one of those, but I also have a 430 litre or something upright one in my pantry room. And I don't know. Yeah, I've got a full size fridge as well. So, and then I've got 2 bar fridges outside. We've got food everywhere, and there's 2 of us. You just never know.
Who's going to drop in?
That's right.
That recipe looks absolutely beautiful, and we do have a copy of it. We're going to pop it up on the social media sites there, but it looks easy to make too. And challenge accepted. I will be making it and coming back to you with a review. So thank you. Kind regards.
To report back. Yeah, absolutely. And then I'll critique it.
Yeah.
Well, that's so cool that it's for everyone to make, because the irony of some of this indigenous food, which is native to Australia, is that sometimes you can only get it in really fancy restaurants and really fancy, expensive places. So if it's more accessible to everyone, then people aren't so afraid to try it. And I think people think the flavors are going to be too strong, or how do I use it? So bringing it to people in simple recipes is a really cool way to get more people using it.
We need to be using it. You know what I mean? Like it's stuff that's been around for literally thousands of years. It's not hundreds of years. Yeah. So I think it's wonderful. We've got another place that's closer to Echuca that it's actually like a retreat for young Aboriginal boys, and they are growing Indigenous foods as well. So that's just sort of getting started too. But I reckon people just need to step out of their little comfort zone and give it a try. At the end of the day, with the pepperberry sauce, like the recipe says, a quarter of a teaspoon. We'll start with a quarter of a teaspoon. And then if you want a bit more, you think, oh, yeah, I can just taste it, but I reckon a little bit more, then give it another little pinch. You know what I mean? That's how I cook all the time. Yeah. It's a bit of this, a bit of that, and, you sort of start to learn your flavours.
Now, speaking of gourmet food, because we're just about out of time today, we have to ask this question. We ask all our guests this question. Jodie, what is your standard fish and chip order?
I love that question. And it is a bit gourmet,
so do I.
There's a thing about fish and chips, isn't there? You know what I mean? Like, you've got to get it right. If you go to a fish and chip shop and you get a bad order, then you're never going back, are you?
No.
Never.
No, never.
So for me, and it's a bit of an explanation, but you know what I mean? Like, husband and wife, Mick and I, we always share our food. So we would be a piece of flake. We don't do any of the fancy fish. It's just battered flake. Hopefully they've got the big silver bowl and they're hand battering it. That's always a bonus. You don't get that at the Turrumbry Roadhouse, by the way. Yeah, absolutely.
You got that at the Kingston Road fish and chip shop?
Yes, exactly right.
That's right. Where we grew up.
Yep, 100%. Right next door to the TAB.
Yeah, it was John, wasn't it? John ran. Yeah, because I remember Nick and Sula had the milk bar, but John, he ran the fish and chip shop, remember?
Yep, I do. And do you know what the fish and chip shop was before it was a fish and chip shop? It was a pet food store.
Oh, no.
Oh, nice segue.
Yeah. So anyway, so always just got to have run-of-the-mill piece of flake and then a hamburger with the lot. One thing I will say about the Turrumbry Roadhouse is that the people that run that are Indian, and he does his own patties, and they're just the bomb. They're really good.
Yum.
But, this is universal. Any shop that I would go to. Piece of flake, hamburger with the lot, 2 potato cakes, 1 each. They usually give you 3, don't they?
So, if they're really good.
That's right. Exactly. Might even be a small one, but Mick always gets the extra. Minimum chips. Now, this is where the gourmet comes into it. I always say I like my chips crunchy because I don't do the soggy. So I always like an extra 30-second dip or something like that. You know what I mean?
Yum.
So,
yeah.
I won't go back if I don't get the chips how I want them either. Corn jack.
Never go with corn. I don't reckon I've ever had one.
You got to get onto a corn jack, chick. Oh
my God.
Do you like corn?
Yeah.
Yeah, you'll never go. You will corn jack for the rest of your life. They are so good. they're so good. You got to get a corn jack. Write it down.
Is it,
I
I
got
have
a
a
pen,
pen in hand.
righto.
So
Good job.
once you've
Hang
had
on.
a corn jack, you never go back.
Never
You're
go
not
back.
done.
Yeah.
Good.
Didn't even know that was a thing. Once you've had a corn jack,
Wow.
you never go back. Yeah. Right. Last thing, and they don't do these at the Trumbury Roadhouse either, but pickled onion. Remember the big,
in the
jar,
big jar.
sitting on the
Wow.
bench with the big
Yeah.
screw top? Yeah.
Yeah.
So then, right, you get home, you've got to have your bowl of vinegar with salt and cracked pepper in it. So you've got to put salt
Yeah.
in the bottom, cracked pepper, and then vinegar. And so that's so that you can rip your potato cake in half and dunk your whole potato cake in the vinegar, right? And your chips, you bust them in half as well, and you squash them into the vinegar and you eat them. I generally
Yum.
have lemon on my flake, just so you know. Don't
Thank you. Same
always
here.
do the vinegar. But if you're able to get a pickled onion, I will go like that's my pickled onion sound. Sounds a little bit
Yeah.
Apple-ish, I know. But on the pickled onion, while you've still got a piece of pickled onion in your mouth, bite on your piece of flake. Have you got me? Are you feeling the love,
Sensible.
guys?
Yeah, yum. I love,
That
right.
is next
I
level.
love that
That's
pickled
next level.
onion when you bite into the pickled onion, you get that like waft of heat through your nose. It's like, I can't breathe properly for a second.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
If you
It's
follow that
magic.
with your flake, the steam from the flake will give you, it's almost like dragging out the nose. You know?
Yeah,
Cleansing.
that
Yeah,
blowout,
yeah.
mustard style blowout. Oh, I love it.
Wasabi. Oh, that is brilliant. I absolutely love that. And we're
I know
chatting
that went
earlier.
on for a little long.
It's all right. It's okay. It was totally worth it. Had fish and chips
We
for
should
dinner
have
last
we should have
night.
expected it, given that you are very gourmet. We should have expected that it was
Yeah,
going to
Hey,
be.
not me, your budget, man.
It was going to be special. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, we did talk earlier, before we actually started the interview, we were chatting, and you did say that we all talked about how much we talk, and we're like, this is going to be a 5-minute chat.
Yeah.
Easy. We're going to 18 minutes, by the
Yeah.
way.
Oh, stop.
That's okay.
Oops.
Look, podcasts can be up to 3 or 4 hours. It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
Doesn't
That's right,
matter,
exactly.
you know.
It can be an
Oh, dear.
afternoon. It's fine. Yeah.
Yeah, that's one thing that hasn't changed. I haven't stopped talking since Mum said I didn't walk till I was 17 months, but I was talking full sentences at 1. So, and that hasn't stopped. So that's 51 years. I'm in pretty good practice.
Yeah, you've been
Talking for a
doing
long
that
time.
longer than you've been walking. That's
Correct.
fantastic.
It's been so
Oh.
awesome chatting with you today, Jodie-Anne.
has
I
been.
love seeing your gorgeous face, and we're going to post
Thank
this up
you.
on Facebook and Instagram as well. But we want to thank you for being on the podcast and for listening. And, we really wish you all the very best in all your upcoming interesting programs that you're working on.
Thank you so much for the invite, guys. It's been amazing to be either side of Nhill, and I'll be making sure that I post everywhere and get everybody following as well, because you guys are hilarious. It's been such a pleasure to be with you.
Oh, thank you. Thanks so much. See you later.
Bye.
Mwah.
That was awesome. Absolutely loved chatting with Jodie-Anne.
She's great fun.
Yeah, so many memories there, and we're going to hook up again when she comes down to Melbourne. So I hope you enjoyed that. And also, I am going to create her recipe, which was the lamb cutlets with the pepperberry sauce. And
Yeah.
I'll keep you posted on how I go.
I'm going to go get some home brand jam today. Why not? Let's do it.
Yum.
Plum jam. No, she was so much fun, and that was great fun chatting. So
Yeah, she's
thanks so
awesome.
much, Jodie-Anne. Yeah. So what we thought we'd do is just give you a couple of ideas of places that you can try either side of Nhill if you're wanting to go to places that actually use indigenous foods and native ingredients. A couple of places here in Adelaide, well, in South Australia, there's one in North Adelaide called Red Ochre Barrel and Grill. It's in North Adelaide. And they cook with a lot of indigenous and native foods. And North Adelaide's a really beautiful part of Adelaide, War Memorial Drive there, and they use lots of native ingredients for their cooking. It's a beautiful spot to go and have something to eat. So that's in North Adelaide if you want to go and try that out. Also in the Clare Valley, which is lovely wine country here in South Australia, there is a winery called Paulette's Winery, and I have to, full disclosure, tell you that it is my cousin's winery, and they're not paying me to tell you this. But Paulette's Winery, they do really beautiful wines.
How come I don't know about this cousin? This is a secret cousin.
Is a cousin. This is my secret family cousin. Yeah, on the other side. Yeah, my other. You know, it's weird how you have cousins and then you have other cousins from the other side of the family.
I feel a bit left out.
Well, this is Alison, my cousin from my mum's side, and she's my youngest. She's the youngest. I'm the youngest on the Kempster side, but she's the youngest on mum's side. Alison, and she's awesome. She's fantastic. Another brilliant cousin. Lots of energy and just heaps of fun.
Are you doing a podcast with her?
We are. Yeah, that's why I've got to go. Can we wrap it up? Because we got another one to do.
Either side of Adelaide with Alison.
Either side of Clare. Yeah, that's it. So Ali runs Bush Divine Cafe, which is part of Paulette's Winery, and it started small, but now it's massive, and it's part of the Clare Gourmet Weekend, which was just recently happened. And it's, if you go to Paulette's, it's stunning. It's near Polish Hill kind of thing, if you know that area, and they're right at the top of a hill, and the view is just absolutely stunning. So, and their chef is super talented, and they cook some amazing food. They do food flights, you know, which they match with their wine, and they do big functions and big groups, and it's really stunning. So there's a couple of places you can try in Adelaide. What about you, Kristy?
Yeah, well,
what about your side of Nhill?
In Melbourne, we have Big Esso, Mabu Mabu at Fed Square, which is an Indigenous-owned bar and kitchen. It sells pantry items such as teas, sauces, and marinades. It's located right in the heart of Melbourne in Fed Square and on the land of the people of the Kulin Nation. So it's bringing lots of Indigenous food and culture back to the banks of the Birrarung, which is the Yarra. And did you know, Ben, that it was once an eel breeding ground, and the Yarra also had sharks and dolphins and stingrays, could be swimming, it could be found swimming around freely. And also there is a seal that's got its own Instagram page that lives in the Yarra River. No joke.
I'm just imagining it posting its photos with its big flippers.
Yeah, and also Matthew Koop, who we spoke to earlier, sells his Wattleseed, which goes onto the Wattleseed pavlova.
Yum.
Check it out. We'll put the links in the show notes. But Mabu Mabu at Fed Square, it looks absolutely fantastic.
Oh, yum. Okay. Well, hey, believe it or not, that just about wraps it up for today's show.
Yeah, what an episode. Jam-packed.
Oh my gosh, there's so much going on, and we could have done more, but we thought we better wrap it up. So we're going to finish off telling you a few things that are going on in Melbourne and Adelaide. Kristy, why don't you tell us what's going on in Melbourne?
Oh, there's heaps happening in Melbourne right now. Enough to give you FOMO. So there's the winter night market at the Vic Market. There's all sorts of winter comfort food and performers and entertainment, and also there's the Rising, which is an arts and music performance festival right in the heart of Melbourne. There's all sorts of light shows, and it's on until about the 12th of June. So, and there's also incorporates into the Royal Botanic Garden. So there's heaps happening in Melbourne right now. What about you, Ben?
Fantastic. Yeah, no, we've got the Melrose Fat Tyre Festival. Melrose is in the Flinders Ranges, sort of near Mount Remarkable. It's a stunning part of the state. It's a weekend of guided bike rides. There's live music, entertainment. So absolutely get along and have a look at that. For those that love their winter reds, red wine, this is more so later in July. We've got in the Adelaide Hills, there's open fires, red wines and rustic food through the Adelaide Hills. So there's day and night events, and try all the wineries and go to some iconic venues, and it sounds really, really nice. A really nice thing to do during winter. But of course, the big thing in the city itself, the Adelaide Cabaret Festival, which kicks off on the 10th of June and goes right through to the 25th of June. Tina Arena is the artistic director this year. We've got Paul McDermott, Libby O'Donovan, Reuben Kay. There's a really interesting one called Every Musical Ever, which is a breakneck history of musical theatre, and heaps more. So check all that out, everyone. It's a great time. It's chilly, but there's heaps happening. So have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks so much for listening. See you later.